You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. We have a great show planned for you today. We have some great deep dives, if you will, into, which just already started playing a little bit here, but we'll get it queued up to the beginning. Canadian Taxpayers Federation breaking down the federal government's spending habits, whether they be by politicians or bureaucrats. Either way, they have ways to spend your money that are very creative. Very creative, we'll put it that way. And, as you're looking towards this tax break in 14 days or 13 days from now, or whatever, 11 days from now, where you get a break on a couple items that you might purchase. Maybe if you go out when you're out shopping and you go out for dinner or something, you may get a break on the taxes. If you buy a video game console, if you buy some diapers, stuff like that, right? So, and it's going to be horrific for small businesses. Small businesses, it might even be the nail in the coffin for some of them that are just struggling to get their bearings, to get out of all of the stuff that they've been through for the last few years. If anything, you would almost think it was a specific attack from this government on small business to make their lives even more hectic and more red tape for them. But we'll have more on that as the show progresses. We'll have some local stories. There was a fire in an encampment here in town. All the news outlets have covered. Miles told us about it yesterday, but we were, it was a little bit later in the show, and we basically, I didn't see his comment for one, so that didn't help anything. And yeah, so here we go. Got this, and wasn't sure what that was. But anyhow, yeah, we're going to be sharing a little bit on taxes as well, like where tax on gas, all the taxes that are involved with it. Taxes, I guess, will be the deep dive today, getting a little bit of relief from them, and then a headache and a nightmare for certain people because of that. And what do they do with the money they collect anyways on a daily basis? So what do they do with your money? You're going to want to stay tuned, stay around for this segment we're going to be talking about, because it's pretty eye-opening. If it doesn't make you particularly frustrated or angry, I don't know what will. But it's just the tip of the iceberg at how poorly our government manages your money. And then they have the gall to come out and say they're going to give you a bit of a break on it while they make hell out of small business owners' lives to try and live out their fantasy, basically, and try and do the work that it takes to actually make that happen. They're the bookkeepers, basically, of the government, right? They do all the bookkeeping, tax collecting, everything, but yet they get nothing for it whatsoever. Small business, that is. For tax collecting, I used to think as a small business owner, the government should pay you for the work you're doing, the time you're putting in. At least say, well, it should take you X amount of hours to calculate all of our taxes that you're paying us, so we'll pay you a little stipend or something. But no, nothing. All free for them. And if you didn't pay on time, whoa, watch out. You get a call, and a very threatening call at that. You give us our money right away. But if they made a mistake for you, well, you can expect months, if not years, in order to get that money back. Which, that's our democracy, right? We hear that word a lot. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and you can tell already where I stand on the whole thing. But we're live on CKLU 96.7 FM today. I figured out the little glitch we had. I did a software update yesterday, and there was just one particular feature that needed to be enabled in order to have us go live. So if you were trying to listen yesterday on the radio, I apologize for that. It's my bad. And with that, we won't be having a show tomorrow either. So no Sudbury News Talk on CKLU or on live streaming tomorrow. We'll be heading for some dental surgery. So hopefully everything goes well with that. So that way I can be back on Thursday and be able to deliver the show without being in pain or discomfort or whatever. So we'll hope. So if for some reason we're not on Thursday, you'll know why. And anyways, yeah, we're also streaming live at cklu.ca. We're also live streaming, facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News live. And make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel and the page. Mainly comment, because we'll do our best to get them up on the screen for those watching, read for those listening. And the shows can be found on demand on those two platforms as well. Additionally, on x.com/Sudbury News or YouTube or twitter.com/Sudbury News and Sudbury.news, which is our news aggregator. Local news, all found on one website, Sudbury.news, which you got your CBC, CTV, Sudbury.com, and Sudbury Star, all aggregating into one convenient webpage, which is our answer to the federal government's policy, which makes it impossible for news outlets to have or share any news, whether it's local, provincial, federal, or international news on Facebook or Instagram, which is interesting in and of itself. So we'll talk about some more interesting things the federal government does with your money a little bit later on in the show. The conversation continues on Facebook after the show. So if you have anything you wanted to say or add to the conversation, this is your conversation on your station, by the way. So let's dive right in. We're going to start off with a little bit of weather, and we'll be back with news headlines, your comments, and more right after this. Stick around. It's going to be a great show, I promise, or your money back. And Sudbury Weather is brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. Currently, it's -9 degrees out there. Feels like -12. It's cloudy, mainly cloudy today as well. High will be -6. With the wind chill this morning, it should be -14. But later today, the wind chill will feel like -8 in the afternoon. Tonight, snow with a risk of snow squalls. 15 centimeters-ish. Temperature will be rising to -3 by morning. The wind chill will feel like -10. So Wednesday, snow with a risk of snow squalls, local amount of 10 to 15 centimeters. With the morning temperature steady near -2. So you saw the snow in Muskokas and in Sault Ste. Marie. Well, snow's coming for this area now, tonight and tomorrow. So again, -2 in snow for Wednesday, 60% chance of flurries for Thursday, mix of sun and cloud on Friday, high of -6. Saturday, 60% chance of snow, -6, 40% chance on Sunday with a high of -5, and a 60% chance of flurries on Monday with a high of -3. A lot of precipitation activity, a lot of clouds. It just seems clouds are everywhere these days. So the whole screen is full of clouds from everything we can see from Manitoba past Quebec down through Michigan up to James Bay, you name it. It's clouds. So that's your Sudbury Weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with your news, headlines, comments, and more right after this. Okay, and we're back, and a few people here online joining us, and we'll start off here with a couple shout outs this morning. Nana's joining us from YouTube. Good morning and blessings to everyone with a heart emoji exclamation point. Good morning, Nana. Thanks for being on. And same to you, David. Good morning, all. Thanks for being on, David. And Judy on Facebook. Good morning to you. And Monique, good morning. Sudbury, smiley emoji. Denise, blessings, everyone. Blessings to you as well, Denise. And good morning, Rick. Good morning, everyone. Marianne, good morning from Barrie. Liked and shared, as usual. And Grand Rising, this is Monique with a heart emoji. And David, good morning. Take care. Stay safe. The same to you, David. I hope you're doing well these days. And Belinda, good morning. Oh, what we find when we stop searching. Oh, what we feel when we stop forcing. And oh, what we receive when we stop fearing. Oh, what we become when we just love. Right on. That's an awesome statement today, Belinda. As usual, appreciate it. And it is true. We can not do a lot of things or do a lot of things. But the one thing that's in our control, because a lot of things are not in our control, right? We need to understand what's in our control and what's not in our control. And what we can control is how we feel about ourselves and about other people. And we can have a perspective of forgiveness for ourselves and others and love for others. That's something that's in our control. And the weight can come off of our shoulders. And we can then be lighter and freer to do more positive things for ourselves and for others that way. So yeah, so very great statement today about just kind of pivoting a bit, maybe changing. This morning I was thinking of that, changing my routine just a little bit. And it was great. Instead of doing one thing one way, I tried it a different way, and it was actually better. Now my routine will be a little more effective in the morning. As you can see, we got off to an earlier start, a regular start, because I simply just was open-minded to changing for the positive, a positive way, being aware of change, being aware that I can change the things that I can change. Things I can't, there's no use worrying about because I can't change them. I can only change what I can change. And it's really good. That's the Serenity Prayer for all of you that know this. You can look it up if you don't. It's pretty darn remarkable and life-altering if you get what it says. It's called the Serenity Prayer. Pretty cool. And it goes along with what Belinda was saying a little bit this morning, or at least I'm taking the liberty of saying it goes along with what you had said this morning. So much appreciated. Marianne says the biggest joke you will have to pay. Sorry, the biggest joke is you have to pay to do your taxes, and you are taxed on money for you were already taxed for. Makes sense, right? Theft at its finest. Oh yeah, you got that right. Bizarre. And morning, Vin. Yeah, we'll be talking about taxes today. That's right. The tax relief that we get for a couple months. That's going to be a nightmare for certain people. And yeah, I don't know how much good it's actually going to do for anybody. But anyways, good morning, Ron. Thanks for being on. Good morning, exclamation point. Thanks for chiming in, and hopefully you stick around for the rest of the show. Any comments are appreciated that you have on your views on the news that we're talking about. And Estelle, good morning, heart emoji. Good morning, Estelle. Andrew, good morning to you. Hope you're having a great morning. And Denise says the federal government, the Bank of Canada is a special type of crown corporation owned by the federal government, but with considerable independence to carry out its responsibilities. The governor and senior deputy governor are appointed by the bank's board of directors with the approval of cabinet, not by federal government. Well, interesting. It's a federal corporation, but it doesn't act like a federal entity. So Thanks, I appreciate that. And we will be talking about money and taxes, and the Bank of Canada has everything to do with that as well. The money that we borrow and then have to pay back with interest, and that's what our taxes have to do. Our current Prime Minister has doubled our national debt since being in office, from $6 billion to $1.2 trillion. So that's great. That'll be a legacy he could leave behind. That and legalizing marijuana. So Denise, the governor and senior deputy governor are appointed by the bank's board of directors. Okay, yeah, we had that at the end, but appreciate you adding that so that way it gets up on the screen. Leandre, Canada will need to become the 51st state of Trudeau's, due to Trudeau's bad management. Yes. What I thought was interesting last night was watching Fox News. Yes, I watch Fox News. And yes, I watch CNN. And yes, I have to listen to CBC. It's the only thing in my car. And the interesting thing was Fox had everything they said at that dinner. They were talking about how Trump was laughing with Trudeau about, the state of Canada, and maybe Canada can become the 51st state and he can become the governor of it if he wishes. And, but then someone at the table said, yeah, but that would be a very left-leaning state or whatever. And they laughed and said, well, maybe we can make 2 states out of Canada, one more right, one more left. It's kind of like the way it kind of is anyways, if you factor in Alberta and the West with some of the rest of Canada. It's not exactly like that, half and half. But anyways, they were all kinds of conversation they were talking about at the table when Trudeau was visiting Trump in Mar-a-Lago. So CBC says, and we don't have any information about what they talked about whatsoever. That's what CBC said. But it sounded like the only reason they said that because it is our state media, right? It would have made Trudeau seem in a bad light because he was just basically pandering to Trump and he doesn't want to come across as that. And, he definitely went there with his tail between his legs. There's no doubt about it. So it was an interesting thing to see. And Lise, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Hello. Denise says the cabinet currently consists of 35 members, including Trudeau, with 17 women and 18 men. So that's the cabinet that appoints the people to the Bank of Canada, which is supposed to be a federal institution. Belinda says lies and deceptions have an expiry date. Trudeau's reign is coming to an end. I would have to agree on that one. And Mike, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Much appreciated. Hope you're having a good morning. And Marianne says Canada is being bankrupted all by design. Hence Bill C-293 to bring in digital currency and save as the save which is no save. Yeah, those bills, right? They kind of come across for a reason, but then they sneak in all these other things into these bills that kind of get swept under the carpet, and that's the reason why they're there. It's Trojan horse kind of concept, right? You've heard the story of the Trojan horse. If you haven't, you can look it up on Google. It's really interesting. That's the same concept of our bills that we have. We put things inside of them to hide them, so that way when they become law, then they can be enacted and acted upon. And Pat, good morning to you. Greetings, smiley emoji. And Vin, taxation on Canadians didn't start until 1917. But many large, in capital letters, buildings and infrastructure was very prevalent prior. True. How did that happen if there was no taxes? In 1971, Denise says, everyone was given credit. No discrimination. The same time, the taxes started going up on food, clothing, and more. We took credit and more taxes go up, for sure. And now we pay 43% of our income in taxes. Doesn't leave much room for anything else. Then after that, you got to pay your rent, your food, your car, you name it, after you pay 43% in taxes. But if you were to equate what they're going to do with the GST holiday, maybe that'll take it down 0.00001 percent of that 43%. Big difference they're making for everybody. Trump didn't let Trudeau stay at Mar-a-Lago. I didn't realize that. I guess they just had dinner there. That's Belinda. And Liette says, good morning, everyone, with a peace sign emoji. Peace to you as well, Liette. Thanks for being on. Hope all is well in Collingwood. And Vin says, Canada reform its current policies to give the lower to the people, essentially a republic, or closer to anyhow, would be much better than joining the U.S. Grass isn't always greener on the other side. Amalgamation would do more damage than good. Oh yeah, I'm not saying I'm a fan of becoming the 51st state of the United States. Although I would entertain the idea to some degree. There's nothing wrong with entertaining ideas. Let's see what they would be offered, right? And let's see if it would be in the best interest of the people, whatever's in the best interest of the people. But no, I'm not for becoming part of the United States. If I want to be part of the United States, I'll move there. Good morning and say no to digital everything, thumbs down. That's Jerome. Yes. Okay. So Canada's to reform its current policies to give power to the people. That's what Vin meant to say. So like a republic. I like the idea of a republic. That's why I like the idea of the United States. But it's not a republic anymore. It's a democracy. They no longer say republic. They don't act like a republic. They act like a democracy, which a republic is different than a democracy. A republic is based on foundational principles that don't change, just like pillars. But democracy says, if the people decide to take the pillars down, then that's what you do. Whatever the majority says rules. Republic doesn't work that way. A republic stays the way that it is, and if you don't like it, you leave. Foundationally speaking, like you can change laws and stuff, but the major foundational things that the country's built on, they don't change. They're not up for debate. Like we're all equal under God. That's like the foundational principle you can build your republic on that will never change. And if someone wants to change that, you got to find another place that doesn't recognize a God and that they built their nation on God's principles, But a republic that continues to be a republic can say, no, we're always going to remain that way. Right? And I think that's where the United States has gone wrong. Disabled Kane, Trudeau went there with his tail between his legs, which is where Jagmeet. Okay, I'm not going to continue to read that, but that's good. Everyone else can read that either on the live or the on demand. So why government salary are all overpaid? Why government salary are all overpaid and they are not worth it to work for the people? All liars. Yeah, we're going to get to all of this, guys. Canada is a corporation, 100%. Monique and Denise has told you 10 countries. So North America as one country is going to be coming. I'm not sure I can get the shorthand there. 10 kings. Just missing an N. Okay. 10 countries, 10 kings, only North America. It's coming. That's Denise. Vin says it's a democratic republic protected by the Constitution. There you go. Exactly. However, the more and more they just kind of not talk about the idea of the republic, it's more the idea of democracy, Like George Bush said, it's only a GD piece of paper. He said, goddamn piece of paper at some point. And that's the way they look at it. It's only a piece of paper. And that's not really what it was meant to be. It was meant to be foundational principles that you abided by, and everyone abided by, not just a few. Yes, if people dig, they can find our head office is in Washington. Corporate head office. That's Canadian, the Canadian head office. Interesting. Well, see, you learn something every morning, and I did kind of know that, by the way. And Washington isn't even part of the United States. Go figure, right? D.C. is not really part of the United States. It's not a state. And neither is the Crown in London, and neither is um, the Vatican City, not part of Italy, right? So you have three chunks of land that are just kind of separate from any country or any laws or whatever, but yet they are in those countries. So very interesting stuff. Like the rabbit hole, it's pretty large and it's pretty deep. So you can go there if you want. But today we're going to cover some of the local news, starting off with the encampment fire. Unfortunately, by Energy Center, but CTV does a really good job covering that. We'll be back right after this.
This is what's left of one tented area in an encampment on Energy Court just off Lawrence Street. Witnesses say there were several explosions. Fire, police, and paramedics responded just after 5 p.m. Sunday.
Our crews noted that there were several propane tanks and other fuel-fired appliances within the fire area, and certainly those were the explosions that were seen and heard in the community.
Fire officials say one person was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Here's what police say happened.
The fire has been deemed accidental. Through the investigation, it is believed that individuals inside one of the tents started a propane tank in order to start a heater, and shortly thereafter lit a cigarette, and unfortunately that caused the propane tank to explode, engulfing the tent in flames.
The city confirms there are almost 400 homeless people in the city right now, and that 71 overnight shelter beds are at capacity. It means many people have no choice but to live outdoors.
We know that they are using these fuel-fired appliances or generators with electrical appliances to stay warm. It is now winter in Northern Ontario, and that is a primary concern. So we want them to try very hard to use those appliances safely and not to store any unused fuel inside of the tents or the encampments. That can be very dangerous.
Fire officials say the service is currently working with outreach workers to educate people living outdoors about fire hazards and the precautions they can take. The city confirms there are currently 211 people living across 43 encampments. Alan Everson, CTV News, Sudbury.
Don't you find that interesting? We have a facility that has 71 beds in it, and it's not enough for the amount of homeless people that we have in the city, and so we're not able to deal with that in particular. And I'm just thinking how easy it could be, really honestly, to have a simple building with small rooms in it with a bed and maybe a little sink and I don't have no idea, but a communal toilet at least, but a little sink in each room, so with some water. And a bed, a window that was heated. How easy it would be to make a large building that you can just come and have a bed and just sleep. Like, isn't that something that's very doable and very easy to conceptualize? You don't have to put tons of money into the building of this building. Just make sure that it's sound and just have the bare necessities, or just a big open space with cots everywhere. Maybe even some curtains in between them for a little privacy or something. I don't know. I don't understand why it's so impossible to just have something where it's like an emergency center for communities that everyone would be able to utilize possibly if there was an emergency. But in the meantime, it's used for the most vulnerable. And then you can have services there that help them out in whatever ways that have to do with recovery as well. Counseling. Have different religious organizations have a a place there, or at least incorporate them to be open, have them come in and do whatever. Because I think if the whole community worked together with religious organizations and just all work together, you'd have solutions like that. It just boggles my mind how that hasn't happened, where we have left a segment of our population that vulnerable that they have to live in a tent in the middle of a city and have a propane tank go off just because of lighting a cigarette or whatever. Yeah. And again, whatever the combustible thing was, I didn't have my earphones on. Whatever that is, if that's unfortunate that would have to happen. We have the resources in our society to prevent that type of thing. You know? Oh, that was interesting. We just need leaders to be able to step up and lead and organize. And it just seems like that has not happened. And it's interesting why. That's all I got to say. Well, Friday night there was a crash on LaSalle, and a 68-year-old man was a victim and perished. Shortly after 9:55 p.m. on Friday night, officers and firefighters and paramedics were dispatched to what police described as a serious collision involving a pedestrian around 761 LaSalle near Princess Auto, so Montrose Mall area. Upon arrival, officers located the pedestrian, who had sustained serious life-threatening injuries and was transported to hospital. Unfortunately, 8-year-old man succumbed to his injuries in the hospital and was pronounced deceased by medical professionals. So, yeah. Again, that's unfortunate. Prayers and thoughts go out to the family and friends of the deceased. It's just unfortunate. There's a road closure last night just outside Cartier. Highway 144 is closed due to a collision as well. And that's just, road closures everywhere, accidents everywhere. I know Highway 17 East last week was just several accidents, and several times the roads were closed. And now with this new snow coming, we just ask everyone to drive with caution, because if we don't, then, we're susceptible to not only harming our own life, but also harming the lives of others, as our vehicle can basically become a weapon on the roads, correct? So I think Sudbury Star was reporting this next story that I wanted to cover. We'll see here. No, I didn't. I saw it somewhere. So that the idea that the Levac, remember, they wanted to close the arena. Well, apparently that's going to, here you go. Levac Arena safe. This is from Sudbury.com. But the 3 fire halls will close. So on the first day of City Greater Sudbury's 2025 budget deliberation concluded with the tentative 4.8% tax levy increase, which could change the deliberations and pick up again tomorrow. Okay, so that's this was 12 hours ago, so it's recent enough, from our good friend Tyler. So, but coming out of Monday's meeting, it appears the Levac Arena is safe from closure. It also appears as though 3 fire stations, including those in Coppercliff, Valcarin, and Falconbridge, will close by the end of the month. These 2 cost-saving measures proposed by city staff will receive the brunt of the public discourse leading up to this week's budget talks. The I.J. Cody's Arena potential closure inspired Onaping Falls Recreation Committee Chair Carrie Moran to pen an open letter to City Council, and at least 1,900 people signed the petition opposing the idea. During Monday's meeting, no members of City Council chose to champion the business case to close the arena, and no one opted to defer it to next year's budget deliberations. As such, pending the majority of City Council doesn't change their minds on Tuesday, the idea is effectively dead, for now anyway. So that's the idea of closing the Levac Arena. So it's going to continue on. So congratulations to those in the Onaping area. You get to continue to enjoy your arena, which you should. And good morning, Betty. Thanks for being on. Open those church doors. Hide your gold. Interesting. But yeah, that's just the idea of everybody getting together, local organizations, along with the city, levels of government. Everybody just get on the same page and all can contribute to what we could do to help the most vulnerable in our communities, which looks like they're pretty darn still vulnerable after all these years. I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of mankind. People that don't have the basic necessities of life. And when it's happening right under our own noses, and we have the ability and we have the resources to be able to solve these problems, I can't see why we can't. It's just interesting stuff. So anyways, yeah, taxes are interesting, right? Where they come from, and gas tax. Did you know all the different taxes that were found in gas? Well, I found this little, reel on Facebook talking about it. And it's very interesting. So all the different taxes that are in gas. So have a little listen.
Did you know that in Canada you pay up to 7 different types of taxes when you fill up your car? There is a provincial excise tax, carbon tax, transit tax, provincial sales tax, federal sales tax, federal excise tax, and my favorite, tax on tax. You won't see this breakdown on your receipt, by the way. So if you fill up your 64-liter tank, your true cost before tax is only $68, but you will also have to pay $38 in taxes. That brings your total cost to $106. Since the federal carbon tax will continue to increase every year until 2030, assuming everything else stays the same, your taxes will increase from $38 to $63. Follow for more Canadian tax tips. Did you know that in Canada you pay up to 7 different types of taxes when you fill up your car?
So there you go, right? So the carbon tax will basically be the exact same amount of all the gas. So it's just going to be the same amount of the gas itself. So 100% tax. Isn't that interesting? So you pay $60 in gas, it'll be $60 for carbon tax. They really don't want people driving, I'll tell you that much. Or if they want to continue, they're just going to be raking in the cash. So when they give you a little piddly break for 2 months on a couple items, booze, cigarettes, I don't know. Is it cigarettes they're giving the tax on break? I have no idea. It's booze for sure. A restaurant, food, and yeah, 43% of our income goes in tax for sure. And tax on tax, which is an interesting one, right? If I was part of the federal government, I'd be definitely getting rid of that tax on tax. Like it's kind of like your mortgage, the way that the compound interest is in your mortgage. You end up paying 3 times what you should pay for a home, which should be illegal. All these things, just that people just stand for and shouldn't at all. And then what do they do with the money once they get it? That's the thing, right? So, okay. So let's say you're robbing us blind, which you are. You're almost paying half your income to the government to do what? Right? So what are they doing with your money?
You pay too much tax because the government wastes too much money. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. The Fed spent $32,000 on a report about how space exploration is, quote, racist, exploitative, elitist, and environmentally destructive. The Fed spent $20,000 on a report about gender politics in Peruvian rock music. The Feds also spent more than $100,000 on a report tracking the birth, life, and death of an urban grocery cart.
Did you hear the misspending there on those 3 topics that the government is spending on research on these frivolous, meaningless studies? Yeah, that's your money, by the way.
And buckle up, folks, because that's just the beginning of the wasteful spending in Ottawa. It took Parks Canada 4 years and $10,000 to capture 1 American bullfrog in British Columbia. Also in BC, Parks Canada spent $800,000 hunting 84 deer. That's a cost of $10,000 a deer. The feds also spent $8 million building a barn at Rideau Hall. Now, I don't know the first thing about farming, but I'm pretty sure my buddies in Brooks know how to build a barn for a whole lot less than $8 million.
$8 million for a barn. And remember the suite for one of our senators in New York that was purchased for him? Millions of dollars there as well. Just incredible misspending. Terrible. Shameful. Absolutely.
The Trudeau government also spent $12,000 paying seniors in other countries to talk about their sex lives in front of live audiences. That's right, the government was outsourcing old people's sex stories. The Trudeau government also spent $8,800 on a sex toy show in Germany. Well,
no, that's worth it for your tax dollars, right?
Here's a question for you. How much does it cost to produce a podcast? What about several podcasts? Well, if you're the Trudeau government, the answer is about $2 million.
And mine costs about $500 a year.
Governor General Mary Simon spent $71,000 on limos in Iceland. Bureaucrats are spending $76,000 a month renting out art to decorate their offices. Global Affairs Canada is spending $51,000 a month on booze. And bureaucrats also spend $721,000 on tickets to circuses and concerts, balls and ballets in less than 2 years. And Trudeau spent $1.3 million on 3 affordability retreats in 1 year.
Makes sense, right? $1.3 million to discuss affordability, while we are definitely not living in an affordable economy, but they get to spend your money talking about it.
Now that doesn't sound too affordable to me. Then there's the big stuff. It took nearly 24 prime ministers and a century and a half for the government to rack up $600 billion in debt, where the total stood before Trudeau's first day as prime minister. Less than a decade later, this year, Trudeau has now officially doubled the entire federal debt.
Did you hear that? So Trudeau, since being in office, has doubled the debt from $600 billion to $1.2 trillion. Officially doubled the debt. That's the debt that you have to pay back with interest.
In fact, the government now wastes more money on debt interest charges than what it sends to the provinces in health transfers. The feds also put taxpayers on the hook for about $30 billion in corporate welfare to multinational corporations like Honda, Volkswagen, Stellantis, and Northvolt. The feds also announced about $600 million for the Ford Motor Company, $551 million for Umicore, $420 million for Agoma Steel, $110 million for Toyota.
And you hear all of these talks about, mainly on the left, about corporate greed or whatever. Well, who's the government giving this handout of your tax dollars to? Looks like corporations to me.
$372 million for Bombardier and $12 million for Loblaws. And even when the government sets out to spend less money, it ends up spending more. Last year, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland promised to find $15 billion in savings over 5 years. But the feds increased spending by $24 billion last year.
So think of that the next time Chrystia Freeland talks, or anybody in the government talks telling you they're going to do something, So then fast forward to what they actually do. They're looking for $15 billion in cuts, and then they go far beyond that, the opposite direction.
And they plan to increase spending by $111 billion over the next 5 years. Newsflash for the federal government. When you increase spending by billions of dollars every single year, you're saving money wrong. The size and cost of the federal government has gotten completely out of control. Trudeau has added 108,000 extra government bureaucrats since becoming prime minister. That's a 42% increase in less than a decade.
Did you hear that? Did you hear how many bureaucrats were hired since Trudeau's been in? He's increased the job market, yes, but by paying for it with your tax dollars. And now get this, guess how much money the average person that he hires to be a federal worker makes?
Now, for the sake of comparison, Canada's population grew by just 14% during those years. So had the bureaucracy grown in line with population growth, there would be 72,000 fewer federal paper pushers today. The average compensation for a federal bureaucrat is about $125,000 a year after salary, pay, bonus, perks.
So think of the money you make, and then think of the average federal employee, which Trudeau has hired over 100,000 of them since being in office. And have your services got any better since all of these new bureaucrats were hired? Making an average of $125,000 a year? How much money do you make? Right? And then we're going to hear the average, that everyone else makes is around 73,000, right? So they make about $50,000 more than the average Canadian makes from your tax dollars.
And pensions are accounted for according to the parliamentary budget officer. That means cutting back the size of the bureaucracy to population growth would save taxpayers about $9 billion every year. And you better believe Trudeau's battalion of bureaucrats have been busy taking bonuses. Last year, the feds handed out $400 million in bonuses to bureaucrats working in federal departments and crown corporations. And the bonuses are flowing despite bad performance from federal bureaucrats.
So I thought it was all about corporate greed. There's one that comes out of Ottawa that's all I hear comes from his mouth, his lips. Corporate greed. Corporate greed. Probably when he talks, it's like half of his speech, he just puts corporate greed every second word. But that sounds like government greed to me. And all these bonuses for all of these government organizations, what are they getting bonuses for? At least if you're in a corporation, you get a bonus. It's because your performance was good, and it's based on sales, or it's based on growing the company to some degree. What's a government bonus based on?
Government executives overseeing a Rive scam took $340,000 in bonuses. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation handed out $102 million in bonuses in recent years, despite Canadians not being able to afford homes. The Bank of Canada has one job: keep inflation low and around 2%. Yet the Bank of Canada handed out $20 million in bonuses in 2022 as it hiked interest rates 7 times and inflation reached a 40-year high. Then there's everyone's favorite state broadcaster. The CBC handed out $132 million in taxpayer-funded bonuses since 2015. This year, the average bonus for a CBC executive is $73,000, which is more than what the average Canadian worker makes in an entire year. So yeah, you pay too much tax because the government wastes too much money. But here's the good news. Given all this waste, a champion of taxpayers could massively cut spending, and barely anyone outside of the Ottawa bubble would even notice. Now all we need are politicians with the guts to pick up the scissors.
And that's the whole problem, right? It's just the flip-flop back and forth. So liberals spend, conservatives cut. Liberals spend, conservatives cut. And all I hear from my friends who are more left-leaning is, but conservatives, they don't care about social programs. They don't care about the poor. I mean, I don't know if that's entirely true. Like, we have a very liberal mayor right now, and we have tent cities everywhere downtown. I don't know if it's a political leaning that anyone particularly cares about poor people or not. How can you make a blanket statement like that? But yeah, unfortunately, if one party goes out and just spends this way, spends to the point of we're in debt, to $1.2 trillion compared to 600 billion, in a short period of time, and then that's got interest on it. And the next government comes in. What do you expect them to do? Continue to spend like that? the country would go bankrupt. And so that while all the time, while the other side is yelling at them, oh, you're just cutting, you're cutting, you're cutting. So again, is this just wrestling? I have to ask myself anyways, is it all just smoke and mirrors and just, it's just, it's just theater for everybody, a spectacle. And I think so. So it's crazy. Like, why can't you just have a government that actually cares about the people that they are governing over and making decisions that make sense for the people, that you would if you were there yourself? Like, how would you govern your own home? Would you go so in debt where, just spend, and without any regard to the future? What would happen? You'd go bankrupt, and that's where the country is heading. And it seems like a torpedo. It seems like we're being kamikazed, if you ask me. It's either incompetence or it's on purpose, but I believe it has to be on purpose. I think for a government to not take the advice, suggestions, to take the experts' takes on exactly what's going on in our economy and just do whatever they want anyways, for whatever purpose, I have no idea. It's not like everything's getting better. It's not like social programs are getting better. Our healthcare is getting better. Our education is getting better. Our homelessness and affordability is getting better. The opioid crisis is getting better. Crime getting better. All this spending and nothing's getting better. And we're just going further and further into debt. I could see at least the argument being made if life was getting better. Now, because we're spending so much money, and I know you're going into debt, I know you're going to be on the whatever for it. You're going to have to pay it all back. We understand that, and we're putting this on your back. I'm going to go off in retirement, and I'm going to be on my private jet somewhere. My wealth went from $40 million to almost $400 million because I get a 47% return on my investments when the average investment averages about 12% return. Go figure that. That's what Justin Trudeau's wealth went from, about 40 million to almost 400 million since he's been prime minister. And he gets 47% return on his investments somehow. He has a crystal ball. I guess when you get to be prime minister, they hand you a crystal ball for investing somehow, and you get major returns on your money. While you spend so wastefully taxpayers' money, you get richer, taxpayers get poorer, and that's corporate greed somehow? How is that corporate greed? People who just try and boil this down to the socialist chant of corporate greed. Sure, crony capitalism is wrong, but so is crony government operations. And it's worse than corporations are more accountable than government are. And they're to somewhat, held accountable by government, and they're allowed to be crony by the government. They set up regulations and things that favor certain businesses over others. They give hundreds of millions of dollars to certain corporations and not to others. Like, what's up with that? That's not a fair, open world, a democracy and whatever, where, it's very skewed. It's very one-sided. It's powered by greed and power, the need for power and control. And that's all there is to it. It's the worst side of humanity that we're seeing at the highest levels in our society. And it's not right. It's got to stop, or it's going to be like a cancer or a serpent eating its own tail. Eventually it consumes itself, and you'll see that symbol throughout eternity. And speaking of eternity, the show can't go on forever. And so we've come to the end. And I appreciate you guys. I won't be on tomorrow as I will be traveling. So hopefully we'll be back on Thursday on the show. So I hope everyone has a safe and productive and whatever Wednesday tomorrow. And until then, stay safe. Remember to stay aware, take care, like and share. We'll be back same time, same place on the same platforms Thursday, God willing. But either way, Earshot Daily will be on same time, same place today and tomorrow until we're back on Thursday. Have a great one, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.